What's the worst thing you've accidentally overheard? I want out of this marriage. Didn't enjoy hearing my parents split up in the next room when I was a kid. I heard my ex having a business call in his office that sounded a lot like cheating. I was home alone as a 12-year-old and my dad's friend called the house. I let it go to voicemail and he left a bizarre voicemail about my dad being the best friend he'd ever had. My dad came home 10 minutes later and I told him about the voicemail. Dad tried to call him and he didn't pick up. It turned out he shot himself immediately after leaving the voicemail, which was a pretty big mental time bomb for me. I heard half of the phone conversation. A man said into his phone, "I ain't doing this shitty. There wasn't supposed to be no security guard here." Overheard by me. The security guard. In a bank that had recently been robbed. Heard a co-worker plot with her husband to falsely accuse her ex of child abuse. She wanted full custody. She ended up with one supervised visit per month. I wonder who spilled the beans? Listening to my parents argue about my father's internet history having PRN in it. Followed up with them arguing about their declining sex life was pretty rough on me when I was 12. Standing in line waiting for my Tim Hortons coffee. The girl in front of me was talking with her friend. Yeah. So I caught HIV from this dude. It's okay though. It's not like I'm going to die right away. I don't think you want that kind of positivity. I'd been on holiday for about a month. On the other side of the world to my family. I had FaceTimed my mum and told her what I was up to. Found out what was going on back home. Just normal conversation. Eventually we said bye and mum ended the call, or so she thought. She'd just paused it so the audio was still coming through. I heard my little sister ask her, "Are you crying?" And mum said, "Not now." I quickly hung up. I think she missed me and didn't want me to know she was sad. Waiting to Skype call my long distance girlfriend and before the video comes on the audio peaks up. Heard her roommate yell to her, "You gonna dump that sorry little boy now?" Where she immediately turned off the feed and broke up with me over Skype text instead. Nice. I dunno if this counts as overheard or not. But I guess this kind of counts. One night back in 2005. I was getting ready for bed when my phone rang. "Hi. Are you the wrong bucket potato?" "Yes. Full stop. Full stop." I responded. "I hate to ask this. But my daughter had a son a long time ago and gave him away. I've been looking for him since he was born. Do you know who all of your grandparents are? You adopted?" Unfortunately for her, I knew my whole biological family. I recounted my family history and how I couldn't possibly be her wrong bucket potato. She asked me a few times if I was sure, absolutely sure, but I had to specify that I was. Then she asked me a bit about myself. What I did in school and what I did for a living. I think she was trying to imagine what a lost grandson, who just happened to share my name, might be like. I hope that poor lady found her grandson. After speaking with my grandpa on the phone before he properly hung up, I heard him commenting to my uncle how ungrateful I was. I had at that point visited every week for a year and cleaned his entire bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, hallway and living room every single goddamned week. Usually bringing some food or dessert with me. You poisoned my ovaries. You do. Two of my best friends in high school had a conference call about me. I just happened to be with the third friend they called and overheard how they thought I was annoying and I'm only friends with this other person for popularity. Stopped being friends with them shortly after this. I was 14 years old and it was the end of 8th grade. I f***ing hated middle school and was picked on mercilessly. As the end of the year celebration we went to one of those putt-putt driving range batting cage places and my older brother came and visited for lunch. He was like 19 and home from college and it was really sweet of him to do. I also have to note that objectively my brother is very attractive. At the time he was a college swimmer so he was in really good shape and all my friends were gaga about him. When I was in line to get some more food, I heard these two bitchy girls in front of me go, "How does she have such a hot brother when she turned out so bad?" Oof. My poor fragile 14-year-old self-esteem. I pretended I hadn't heard them. Left the line. And managed not to burst into tears. Teenage girls can be so cruel. Not that much of an accident. But my mom caught my dad having an affair and I overheard her as she was yelling at the top of her lungs while my dad was sobbing, begging her to take him back. Never looked at my dad the same way after that. Edit. Just for some more background. I was 16 when this happened. And I'm now 34. No, I wouldn't ever date that kid. He is ugly. A crush of mine in middle school describing why she wouldn't ever go out with me while she didn't know I was walking a few people behind her in the hall. It got a good laugh from everyone else, but middle school me did not like that moment very much. Lol. Also. Probably not the worst thing I have ever heard, but it's all I can remember right now. I overheard my long-term boyfriend's mom talking negatively about me multiple times when she didn't think I was around. We have been dating a long time and I try to be as thoughtful as possible. It is what it is, I guess. I can't make her like me or change the way she is. Brought this up in another thread like a month ago. On my first day of college while waiting online at the bookstore. I know you should never buy books at the college, lol. Two girls were behind me on the line talking about a cute guy in front of them on the line. I naturally took this to think it was me and it raised my ego quite a bit. Until one of them tapped me on the shoulder and asking me to get the attention of the guy just ahead of me online. Was bartending. On our busiest day. People were waiting everywhere, even outside. Family is a little loud and rowdy. A kid about 8 can't be still. Him and a guy seems to be about late 20s are wrestling and acting up. Kid is yelling no and screaming. People are kind of used to them at this point. Suddenly the guy starts yelling, "I am gonna grab your penis." And says it a few times. Kid is yelling no. The entire restaurant got dead silent and everyone was jaw-dropped staring finally. After a bit too long. The mother is like, "WTF, can't say that or act like that," and they all go outside. So guy at work was on his cell phone. He starts getting louder and louder. Eventually he is basically yelling into his phone. He was on the phone with his wife, verbally abusing her and yelling about how bad he was going to beat her when he got home. Security was called. He was fired and the police were contacted about the potential abuse. Once I was waiting for the elevator in my building and a guy came out of his apartment and screamed into his phone the following quote. "Ahem. I could suck your dick and I still wouldn't be gay. Full stop." We both looked at each other in shock as he receded into his home. On a flight got once I listened for 2 hours to the old men behind me talk about their recent SZUL exploits in Thailand. It was disgusting. Once on a train ride home. I overheard a young woman's phone conversation about becoming a prostitute and trying to find a pimp in graphic detail. Including accepting that she would occasionally get the shit beat out of her. It was horrific AF. I was in my garage one night a few years back when I overheard my teenage neighbor on the phone trying to convince his girlfriend to get an abortion. Was eating at a Joe's Crab Shack several years ago. Our server was a younger black guy. So we're all done eating. Restaurant is fairly empty. All of a sudden we hear him clear as day in the kitchen, "What? I will knock your motherfucking head off." Then we see him walk out of the kitchen with a manager. He goes outside for a few minutes to cool off presumably. Short time later he comes out with the desserts a couple people at our table ordered and says. All cheery. "So, who had the cheesecake?" I was visiting my brother from out of state. Eater. I'm female. We went to the store. He dropped me off at his college apartment. And then he and my dad went to run a different errand. My brother's landline phone rang. I went to answer it. But it went straight to his answering machine. This was a while ago, 1999. The message was a male voice saying, "Hey. I saw you just a little while ago with a kind of ugly girl." Eater equals edited to add. Your frustration at trying to figure out how this made sense in the above sentence is me, a 40+ person, trying to understand some of the pop culture references you gosh darned kids throw around. I was 14 and I overheard my mother talking with the doctor about my younger sister's cancer treatment. I had no idea she had cancer. She had no idea she had cancer. As soon as she got off the phone I asked her what was going on. She burst into tears. I burst into tears. My little sister was 8 at the time and had been ill for months. So I helped my parents talk to her. It was very upsetting. We shortly after took her to a clinic 500 miles away. Spent a week there. No cancer. No leukemia. Misdiagnosed. She had an abscess that caused her symptoms. Easily treated. But I'll never forget hearing the phone call. When I was 12 I overheard my stepdad saying to my mum how much better their life would be without me there and how awful I am and how he wishes I wasn't there. My mum just agreed. I wasn't even a bad kid. Did well in school. Never got in trouble. I could be a stroppy teenager. I guess it wasn't so much an accident as it was an inevitability. But as I was entering my dorm one day freshman year of college, a girl who was sitting in the courtyard shouted to her friend who was right behind me, "The doctor says nothing is wrong with me. I just have an abnormal nipple." When I was 7 we had 2 house phones in different parts of the house. I heard the phone ring one time and my parents were both holed up in my dad's office and picked up the phone, which I thought was weird. I picked up the other phone to satiate my curiosity only to hear some lady screaming at my mom about how bad my dad was in bed and she doesn't care about him anyway. Just wanted to get ahead at work. Was a lot to swallow at the time and an awkward afternoon. A wet fart 1 aisle over from me in the drugstore. I was on a cruise and reading a book in one of the lounges. This very upset woman sat sort of behind me. And her husband was with her. She was crying because their vet had some bad news about their dog. And she was trying to call the vet. She told the husband after she got off the phone that she needed 15 minutes to listen to a song by herself and collect her thoughts. He asked if he could get her anything and she said no. She just wanted to be alone for a minute. Once he left, she called her boyfriend and started giving him grief about girls liking his pictures on Instagram and how jealous she was and was making plans to sneak off to call him later. Scumbag. Hearing my cat vomiting. I was on a coach bus traveling to another state and I woke up to someone whispering, "Hey, remember what we said earlier?" I thought they were about to argue again since they were going back and forth about something earlier, only to hear muffled sucking noises. At first I was like, what? Then was like, oh. I was around 8 or 9 years old. It was early morning around Christmas time. I was laying in bed and I could hear my mom talking to somebody on the phone downstairs. She was talking loud enough for me to hear every word she was saying and she ended up confirming my suspicions. Santa was not real. She said something along the lines of, "If you Jurassic things wants to still believe in him, then I will let him." Later that day I was snooping around the Christmas tree looking at presents and I saw a few gifts for me that were from Santa. This was at least a few days before Christmas, so the secret was out. My mom really dropped the ball that year. I work in a hospital. I overheard a doctor telling a 1-year-old's parents their child just died. I will never forget the sounds that came out the mother. This crazy lady in a pizza shop was talking to herself, going on about how she hates juice, fat people. The list goes on. So I turned around and asked if she was okay. Then I got a FCKU. FCK I'm ginger. And that was the end of that. It was low-key really funny cause everyone gave me that "I'm sorry" look and then they all silently shamed her. Then she got even more pissed and talked to herself louder. I didn't stay long enough to see if she got kicked out. My mother and father were arguing one night. My mother had a bunch of pill bottles on the kitchen counter. My brother, sister and I woke up because they were so loud. We got out of bed. Watched them arguing. Our father said to our mother right in front of us, "Go ahead and kill yourself. But I'm not taking care of these kids." Our mother looked at us and walked past us and went to bed. Our father then yelled at us to go back to bed. Our ages were 8, 6, and 4. A little kid yelling he wanted a big booty hoe for his birthday. Kids going places. Not college, but places. On a bus. Guy, yeah, I'm moving in front of World Bar. Blah blah. I'm going to pick up so much. Blah blah. Yeah, you're probably right. That bitch may have given me AIDS. One time I was in a stall at a gas station bathroom. This guy charges in and says something along the lines of, "I can't wait to come over. I'm pretending this urinal is your face." When I heard my parents fighting about when my dad had to move out. The fight was loud and started getting violent before I broke it up. Also the day I learned my parents were getting divorced. A few months ago in the gym. 3 guys were talking very loudly. I could hear them over my music. The weight room was pretty empty. One was talking about how his girlfriend was such a bitch for not putting out. He detailed all her excuses, then went on to say at least he had his other girlfriend. One of the other ones piped up and said he should just wait until she falls asleep because then she can't do anything about it. They all cackled and he said he'd thought of that before but now he'd have to try it. Completely vile humans. When I was a teenager, our bedroom doors were nothing but shutters with handles. Way too many times did I have to listen to my, still underage at the time, older sister have phone sex while I was trying to sleep. Edit FFS. People. I'm female and she's a bitch. Even if she was hot. I'd still want to throat punch her for trying to get me grounded for eavesdropping when I told her to stfoo at 2 AM. Through 2 doors and down a hallway. I heard some parents viciously verbally abusing their kids on a camping trip. Just yelling at them and flat out insulting them. Saying they ruin everything. That they're stupid. Etc. It was so loud. It was hardly by accident I heard it. When I was 9 I overheard my mom telling the maid not to tell the kids that we're eating horse meat for dinner. My own version of "and they were roommates" was one guy saying hopefully she just has cancer to another. I don't want to know what they were talking about. One time. On a cruise ship. I heard a mother comforting her child. Talking about how grandma and grandpa tried to hurt you. And if they ever come near you again. We'll get them kicked off of this boat. Not the worst. But the dirtiest. Working on a bar one night. Just cleaning down my station late at night. I heard one guy say to his friend, "I just love it when my wife shaves her ass hair. It tastes so much better." Someone describing to their friend how to commit RP and get away with it. I'm glad I kicked him out of my life. I'm glad you got back into drugs. I hope you overdose, cocksucker. I once overheard in a bus a woman explaining to her friend that she didn't like that her new BF 10-year daughter had to live with them because her mom was in hospital. So she had hidden money and valuables in the little girl bag. And was planning to confront her about the theft with BF present and get her kicked out of the house. When that Turbok NT friend asked where the girl would go once she was kicked out, mom in hospital and all that monster of a woman answered she can sleep under the bridge or work on her back like her SLT of a mother. I don't give a shit. This is my man and she can die for all I care. I swear if that poor kid had been with them I would have brought her home with me. I am no maternal by any way, but some things and people are just nightmarish. NSFW. Outside of a nightclub a drunken couple were splitting up. Him. I can't believe what I've heard tonight. You've had half the blokes in this town up your shtter. You're a mucky slag. I'm leaving you. Huh? You're not getting your CDs back. I overheard a girl that I basically fell in love with. Talking with her friend like, "You know, he's cute but I think we will just stay friends. You should have talked to her about it.